Hey guys, this will be video one for a new series I'm going to do, and it's for a client, and this is a very rare opportunity to get to build or restore a very cool guitar. And this is basically a 1981 Gibson E2, and it would be the tobacco burst curly maple top with a Honduran mahogany back, most likely. And they did some maple backs as well. But I'm going to talk about some of the specs here, and I'm just going to follow a set list here so I stay on point. But this guitar project is going to be based on either the 58 footprint that I'm always building or the replicas out of, or either we're going to be going with the authentic true 1980 I think it's 81 to 85, I believe, was the few years that they offered that guitar. And in case I forget, this was the seventh, the very first year, this was the seventh guitar that was made. So very early production number. But in this video, I'm going to cover it from like a 10,000 foot view. And this series is not going to be about how to build this guitar. This series is basically primarily strictly for the client, and so that he can check in from time to time and see the progress and make note as to what it is I'm doing, or if I've got any questions for him and stuff like that. But the cool thing about this client is this is the same guy that I restored the 1969 Gibson SG, Eric up in Massachusetts. So Eric, I appreciate you trusting me to build another one for you, or bring this one back to life. So with that said, yesterday I went over to Woodcraft in Birmingham, Alabama, and I bought some, and I'm not kidding, that's some of the most beautiful curly maple I've ever seen, and it's enormous. It's 1 inch thick, and I think it's 10 3/4 of an inch wide, and I could not find one knot in that board, and that board is it's over 7 feet long, I think. Yeah, no, it's 6 feet long. That piece of mahogany is closer to 8 feet long, the Honduran, for the body wood. But anyway, I'll show that in a little while, but it's not all that important right now because I want to get some of the design options out of the way that presented themselves right here in the 12 o'clock hour before we got ready to do the job. But what is this? Again, I'm going to recap. It's going to be a 1981 Gibson E2 CMT for curly maple top. It's going to be the really rare tobacco burst, which is really beautiful. The middle is lemon yellow, and that tobacco burst does not come in, and fade out a lot of the body. They use such a premium maple top, even though it would have been a veneer. They only had to do maybe an inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half burst around the perimeter, just enough to really kind of highlight it. And it's, in case I forget, I don't think I'll forget. Actually, I know I won't, because I've got a note about the first 2 years of the Fender Telecaster or Stratocaster. But with that said, this is a 1981, the rare tobacco burst. They also did an actual cherry burst, which would have been along the lines of like the Les Paul. But this is serial number 81981 and then 007. And the 007, I'll start from the end and go back. The last three numbers being the 007, that lets you know that it was the seventh guitar stamped for that day. And so with that said, the 8 and then the 8 being the first number, it was that lets you know it's 1980 something. And then you go over to the fifth number, and that's a 1. So it lets you know, okay, it's a 1981, which lets you know, well, then that was the first year that they reintroduced this one, and it actually has the actual mother of pearl. It's not the silhouette or whatever it's called, the water slide decal. It's actual mother of pearl. And then not only that, where's the serial number? The second to the fourth number is 198. That lets you know that it was the 198th day of that year of 1981. And then when you do the research, that would have been Friday, July 17th, 1981, and it was obviously from the very early batch of those guitars. It was still made in the Kalamazoo, Michigan plant, and the fact that, as I clarified on the beginning, that it's 007, well, 1981 was the first year that they reintroduced the revised E2. It would not have been the body with the real heavily contoured sculpt work. They got away from that design and they went back to the traditional squared off body, flat side, flat top, flat back, and they did realize that it's time to do something far more traditional, and so not only was this that design, but it has the Gabon ebony fretboard, which is that would have been used on their Les Paul customs and their high end jazz, like probably 335s. I may be wrong about that. Let me stop. I don't know. Just do your own research. I do know that the Les Paul Custom used the Gabon ebony, and the fact that they put that on this Explorer lets you know that they were treating this guitar as a very high end model. And the fact that they were doing the maple cap with the sunburst work and all the amber, that lets you know this was an extremely valuable guitar. And the fact that it is serial number 007 of the first year, if you haven't caught on yet, this would have been the very first day of their stamping. It's a very rare guitar neck. Okay, and it's funny because Eric had sent me this neck about 4 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, when I started restoring his 69 SG, and he was like, "Hey, by the way, I've got this old Explorer," and he was calling it the E2, and I was like, "I don't really know what that is. I think I've heard of it," but when I started doing my E2 research, I thought it was going to be the real funky, weird, overly contoured body, and in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, if that's what he wants, I'll keep my mouth shut and I'll reproduce it. But it's going to be difficult to do that, knowing that we could do such a more beautiful design, only to find out like 3 to 4 days ago was the first time when I really had enough time to research this and find out, oh wow, it's not the real funky, weird contoured body that I thought it was. And then I was even thinking along the lines over the past 2 or 3 months, I hope when we do this project, he'll hear me out and let me talk him into going back to a traditional body, maybe doing a gold top or something like that. And I had not researched it to discover that Gibson had already remedied that mistake and back in the early 80s. So they did all the design work for me, and so it'll make my restoration a lot easier to just take it back to the tobacco burst. And then even when Eric was, and he was really cool and really patient, and when I was talking about it and my lack of knowledge, he never let me know, no, you're wrong. It's not the contoured body. It's the more attractive one. So anyway, with that said, do your own research. But if you want to see a really beautiful guitar that we're going to model this restoration on, just go online and do search 1981 Gibson E2 Tobacco Burst, and it's by, I think, a company called Diablo Amps, but the guitar's already sold, and they have some incredible pictures that document every corner of this guitar. And if anything, man, my hat's off to them, because it made my job so easy to see a specimen. And that guitar is serial number 74, and it looks virtually identical to this, except for the dark walnut is much darker, much darker. So, and even the back of the guitar. So that's the guitar. That's what we're going to be building. I'll bring it back to life here. And so anyway, that's how you do your research. And that was from the Gibson online serial number research. And so I know that to be accurate. And the specs would have been a quick recap: a curly maple top with a smaller body footprint for the 1976 to mid 80s, which is a little bit smaller, more pointed horn right here. That's one option. But all of the ones that I do are per the 58 profile, that are the bigger profile. And I'm going to just present this video to Eric so he can let me know exactly what he wants. But then I'm going to keep my ego on the back burner and work with him to get the guitar back as close to its original state as possible, primarily because from a valuation standpoint. That being so rare, I'm not saying that, well, you could just about claim that it was original, but you couldn't because of this video, of course. But Eric's not restoring it to sell. He's restoring it to keep in his collection. But as I clarified to him, I said, well, if we're going to do that, it's your guitar. I'll put this on any body you want. We could build a limba body if you wanted. And I've been talking to him about those options on the side for the past, couple months or so, off and on. And he even knew that, and as I clarified to him a couple months ago, it's like, I really don't have time to research it right now because I'm restoring your guitar as well as those two early 70s, late 60s Les Pauls that I was working on that are both shipped as well. So I really didn't have time to research what it was I was holding here in my hands. And if anything, I'm glad I didn't, because I would have gotten so distracted because of the rarity here. Well, I would have been able to got myself under control, but it's pretty cool. It's a very, very rare project. And what it's based on is, I say, the curly maple top tobacco burst. It would have had either that guitar that I just told you to search online. It has a maple body, which is bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre. But also that guitar weighed 10.6 pounds. It does have the Gibson ebony fretboard, as I clarified. That's pretty rare, and it lets you know that they were treating it as a higher line guitar. They did offer the rosewood as well later on. What's really beautiful, it only has the single cream. It's probably slightly over a 1/4 inch tall, but it has the single cream binding, the 60 thousandths, because I saw the picture of one from the top, that one from the top, and you can see that it looked very much, like your traditional Les Paul. I'm talking about this thickness here, because when you route out for 60 thousandths binding, yeah, it'll be 60 thousandths to start with, but once you do your final shaping and sanding where you're blending the binding into the side of the body, you're going to lose a little bit of that thickness, and it's going to get close to like 50 thousandths or somewhere in that neighborhood right there. And that's what I saw in those pictures for the 81 that's online. So they started out with a 60 thousandths binding, and then once it got shaped and sanded down, it's a little bit thinner. It's really beautiful. And then the sides, regardless of whether it's a maple body or a mahogany body with the maple neck, they came in pretty darn dark with the stain, and I'm not so certain that this might have been sanded on a little bit. Even I know that's probably player wear, right? Well, that might be player wear, but I would say probably not, because these frets show almost zero signs of wear. I don't see any wear on these frets at all. And even I was explaining to Eric, was like, well, if it were my guitar, I probably would replace the frets. But he and I both agreed, if these are original and they're in as good a shape as they were the first year or two, let's just leave them in. And I did do a rocker assessment with my rocker tool here. And I did find that number 6, oh, there it is. Number 6 is rocking ever so slightly, but only right here. Number 7 is rocking across the whole thing, but not very bad. Number 9 is rocking just a little bit, and then also number 15 on that side. And then definitely number 18 and 19 are rocking pretty seriously, but that's so high up there that even if I did shape those down a little bit, it would be fine. And the beauty about this is I have all the relief off of the truss rod. And this is a beautiful, perfectly straight. From a visual standpoint, it's about as perfect as you could ask for a 40-something-year-old neck that, as I say, is pretty darn rare and is a beautiful, beautiful design. But with that said, we're going to leave these original frets in here. I'm not going to do any sort of like real precise, like trying to level anything. I'm just going to build the guitar and let let it go into its natural forward relief under string tension. And then I'm going to work with this single adjustable truss rod just ever so slightly. And I did test this rod a while ago. I was able to get it to back bow so much that I had a 1/16 of an inch back here. So I know the truss rod is fully functional. And then when I took the relief off, she went right back to a real beautiful flat right now. So when I'm just going to build this guitar, and I'm probably not even going to worry too much about doing too much fret rocking, like trying to get the whole thing like plecked by hand. But I'm just going to play the guitar and work off of this original nut height here. And by the time this gets forward relief in it, all this may need is just what little bit of rocking is there now. Once the fret relief goes into place, that rocking might be completely diminished. And if that's the case, what a sad shame it would have been to have tried to sand that lower before you put the strings on it, only to realize that now you created a low spot and now it's buzzing right here. So if anything, let that give you a sense of comfort, Eric, that I'm not going to lose these frets. And I know for a fact that this one is probably going to be a job that once I get it built, I'll just be removing the strings once or twice and maybe doing just a little bit of hand sanding there, and then doing some beautiful quad alt steel linear brushwork. You know, like this right here, just going across it like this right here with steel wool in order to bring it back. I was catching a fingernail right there. There's a pretty nasty little scratch right there, but it'll buff out. And then I'll bring this fretboard back and it'll be beautiful. And the cool thing is not lose the aged look to it at all. Okay, so very rare opportunity for it to be in such incredible condition. A lot of times by now you're already worn out in this location and you're having to source that fret, put it in, or you're having to remove every one of these, and that adds a couple $200 to $400 to a restoration, because it's a lot of work. Okay, so I got off track a little bit, but I was glad to see that it's in such good shape. And I don't know how I went from 60 thousandths cream binding to oh yeah, because I was talking about dark walnut. So regardless of what the bodywood is, it's a dark walnut back. But I'm going to throw you a curveball closer to the middle of this video about some build options that I think would be really, really beautiful. So stay tuned for that. This thing would have had the gold Shaler tuners, and Eric is aware of this, but it would have been the Gibson logo, and I think Shaler was making the tuners for them. And this is the first time I just removed these tuners a little while ago, and discovered that there's some real strange. Well, I haven't made any discoveries yet, but I'm almost 100% certain that the screw locations down the middle are the ones that I'll need to be filling, because the Gato tuners that you have on there, they are a true 90. You know, they're not angled off the corner, and that's what I saw in the pictures. And this is what Eric showed me as well. I'm not sharing anything with Eric that he's not aware of, but the Gato tuners that he had installed on it, until I removed these about 20 minutes ago, I wasn't sure if I was going to find another screw location like next to it, but it looks like they truly were. The Gatos were pretty much a direct replacement, although the pictures show. Let me put a few in here just so we can kind of do some assessment. And I started to do this on camera, but I didn't want it to turn into a super long video talking about stuff that's kind of irrelevant. But these Gatos, the housings might be a little bit larger than the Shaler, because it appeared to me that the space between the edge of the housing and the edge of the tuner plate there was a little bit more. So, but the cool thing is we'll be able to build the guitar using these Gatos, and then Eric can leave them on there if he chooses, or he can source the Gibson Shaler or either put some straight up German Shalers on there. That's totally his call. And I love doing a project like this because it doesn't force us into, oh, wow, we've got to source these tuners and then you're forced to spend $300 because that's all you can find them for. No, man, use the gatos until till maybe never. Always leave them on there. And these are machined to receive, the traditional face. So it's in keeping with the historical design. And these are in excellent condition as well. And I'm not telling Eric anything he doesn't already know because he's the one that installed those. But it's kind of funny. There's some past stickers on here, and we had talked about what should we do there, like sticker imprints. And my theory is, I don't know, man. I say just leave it. If you wanted me to, obviously I could come in here and sand this off and re-lacquer it, but that'd be a huge mistake because this being the true mother of pearl, and that's the nitrocellulose lacquer right there that has chipped off a little bit as well as aged. And then we got some beautiful checking and some like a real nasty ding right there. Whatever happened, man, it took a nasty blow right there. But no cigarette hot rod burns on it. But nonetheless, it's definitely got some age and some wear. And I'll shoot straight with you right now. I'm really torn between whether or not we should. I'm going to say right now, let's not touch this finish. Let's leave it alone. But definitely down the center line. And I want to be careful I don't get myself into the habit of tiptoeing around really a poor quality lacquer work. I would almost say at this point, don't be surprised if I decide to just strip this and restain it. But I don't want to lose this historical up here and all the bang damage. So if anything, I'll probably try to figure out a way to just come in and maybe just sand it down so that once I start doing my new lacquer work, it'll just look like it always has been. But I got to tell you that wear right there was prevalent on the 81 that's online as well, the player wear. So whenever they were spraying this finish, it was probably pretty thin, and that's really beautiful right there, showing it historically accurate. However, once we come in with our, I got my dad's old miter box from the 70s. That's what I'll be making your new heel out of. So it'll have the real beautiful hard maple. The last piece of maple that I'll be able to use to rebuild the heel, and I'll even be building a tenon. I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I'll just go ahead and go off track here a little bit. Excuse me. Yeah, I did make a mark right there, 76. That's the tongue of the tenon. That's what I will be building, the tongue or the tenon. The tenon will be coming out to right there. It'll be maple, so that once you look down in that body, you won't really be able to tell that it was ever cut apart. However it was built, I have no idea. It's irrelevant. But the way I build it back, it will have the tenon per like the 58 specs. Unless you said, no, I don't want that, don't put a tenon on it. But I would really prefer to do the tenon the way I do these right here. Most of you guys already knows. Hopefully that's showing up on camera. Yeah, if that's not showing up, then something's wrong. That's what the tenon would look like. Okay, get control of the table here. Go back to my point list so I don't get off track. See, because as I clarified, I did not clarify. Somebody had cut this heel off at one time. I have no idea what might have happened to this guitar. There's no telling. Somehow or another, they deemed the body unworthy of staying with this neck, so it might have got damaged really, really badly. And who knows? It's irrelevant. But this right here will be getting a new neck per Gibson standards. That's a Les Paul per Stuart McDonald templates, but it'll be getting basically. Man, it's hard to hold these sometimes. Where's the 19th fret? There's the 19th fret. It'll be getting the Gibson heel. So there'll be about probably about 5/8 of an inch, give or take, put on the bottom. It'll be an enormous amount of work for just a very small piece of wood, but it will guarantee that once it gets glued into the body, whether we glue it in with lacquer or a tight bond, once I'm doing my nitrocellulose spray work with the dark walnut, then it was all of the designs that I saw, they were very much smoked out right there, very dark. But in the very back of the guitar, they were semi-transparent, but then they were fairly dark around the sides, if not blacked out. Not blacked out, but we'll say browned out around the side. And the back of the neck was very much browned out. I don't think you could tell that they were maple until maybe you just wore them out from playing them. But it's obvious that somebody sanded on this one, and fortunately they didn't lose. There's a little bit of a drop right here, but I got to tell you, it's close enough. Okay, so what's going on? This is nice and flat all the way up to this point right here, and then once you get right there, there's a little bit of a drop where it got sanded when somebody was removing this. They might have sanded a little bit heavy right here. So, and I actually can see it. So what will happen right here is obviously you won't sand any more material out of it. You definitely will not. You don't want to lose this profile because that's the original guitar. In other words, to try to clean that up, and you don't want to flatten this out in order to try to flatten it out. But because it has a dip right here, when I rebuild this heel, I'll only bring that heel up to the actual Gibson standards, and wherever the Gibson design ends, well, then that's where my heel is going to end. And if it ends short of that gully, then if there's a little bit of a divot right there, and I'm talking micro thousandths, I'll be building that up with nitrocellulose lacquer. If not, it might take 4 to 5 days after you do all this beautiful work of just putting a puddle of nitro right there, where you would like blue tape here and you would blue tape here like into a little arrowhead point, and then you just brush in a pretty deep layer of nitrocellulose lacquer, let it dry overnight, come back the next day with 220, sand it off with the blue tape still on there until you see the blue tape begin to feather. Remove the blue tape, feather them together, and repeat that process. Blue tape it again, brush in some more lacquer, do that for about a week, and then you'll be able to finally get that nitrocellulose lacquer to build that up. So, because right now I feel it. It's minimal, but I can feel that divot. And so with that said, you won't feel it, and you won't see it, and it will be all feathered in real nice and dark. And if you want me to leave this semi-transparent, I can. If you want me to leave all this worn out area like there, I can. But I would kind of prefer to not worry about trying to tiptoe around that, because I don't want you to see where I did my pinstripe nitro work. It would be much easier for me to just kind of start over. And then if we want to relic it a little bit, then I can sand through this with some steel wool until that maple comes back through again, if you want to see that. But to me, this right here does not look like player wear as much as it looks like somebody might have just got a little bit too much sand heavy. Okay, because it's not along that whole. That looks like player wear right there. Okay, anyway. What else? Getting back on point, so it would have had the gold Shaler Gibson tuners, and it would have had a Tune-O-Matic bridge. I don't really care for the Tune-O-Matic. We'll use that if you find one and you want one, but make certain that the saddles are not screwed up from somebody, messing with them. I really prefer to put a new bridge on it, and I always like going with the ABR one, but it doesn't matter. And I don't think it would be a mistake to go with the Kluson ABR1 with the brass saddles, but a gold. And I definitely could relic. And I forgot to clarify to you, I keep forgetting, on your Gibson SG, I actually did relic that hardware. but only with a quad alt steel wool. I did not sit it in a container with muriatic acid or anything like that to get the vapors on it. But so your SG should age naturally very quickly, because I did relic the little for the bushings for the tuners, and but with a bronze bristle brush. It's right here. So in other words, I knocked the sheen off of it, and that's exactly how I would do this if I was getting ready to relic this. I'll just do it right now. And you'd be surprised, that little bit of relic work right there with the brass bristle brush, and then just put it on there and give it a month or two, and that nickel will start aging very quickly. If you put it in a container with a little bit of muriatic acid in there, the vapors in there will age it very quickly, but you would only want to put it in there for about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes top. Don't leave it in there, because it'll start eating, it'll attack it and destroy it. Okay, so got off point there. So I like the ABR1 bridge a little bit better, but if you want the Tune-O-Matic, we could go with that. But proceed with caution, trying to find a vintage one where someone has screwed up this saddle. I typically like to cut my own saddles unless they're notched from like Tone Pros, and I don't think that Kluson will offer them notched, but typically Tone Pros, they do a great job of notching per vintage specs. So if you got a Tune-O-Matic Gold that was a Tone Pros, that would be an exceptional one if it's already pre-notched. The reason I say that is because Eric has the original, the TP6, and he has the gold one, which is, there's one on eBay right now. It's like $395. That's a very rare design. I did a little bit of research on that this morning, and I learned about a man by the name of Randall Wall. W-A-L-L is his last name, and Randall is the man that designed that bridge. It has a fine tuners on it in 1978, and he had worked for Gibson from 1960 up to 1982, and he was accredited for the design of the TP6 fine tuner bridge. And if you start putting two and two together, his first name is Randall, with two L's at the end, so Randall Wall. And after 1982, he went to work for Heritage Guitars back in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which would have been the original Gibson plant. So he sounds like he might have gone to Nashville for a while. No, probably not. He probably always stayed in Michigan. Anyway, let me stop. But Randall Wall was the man that designed the TP6 bridge, and Eric has the original gold TP6 bridge to go with this project we're doing here. But the reason I brought up Randall Wall and the whole fine tuner design on the bridge, that being 1978, that was pre-Floyd Rose. So if anything, that ought to let you know where Floyd Rose got his idea for the fine tuner. At least it got him thinking in that direction, because once he saw that bridge, I'm sorry, not bridge, it's not a bridge, it's a tailpiece. Once he saw that tailpiece with the fine tuners on it, man, he probably started putting two and two together, and he was like, what if I tilt that baby? Now he's got a Fender hybrid / Randall Wall TP6 design, and he turned it into a Floyd Rose, and Eddie Van Halen changed the world with it. So it's amazing how these men behind the scenes, like the Paul Bixby's of the world, the Larry Allers, which is the man who designed the Gibson Les Paul. He did all the white woodwork. And then like Mr. Randall Wall there, those three men like there probably changed the world they were the three most influential guitar designers and innovators of their time, from the 40s to the 50s and 60s. And as Mr. Wall proved, up until 78. You mentioned not having the black pickup rings. These rings are so easily accessible. These are reproductions that I get from All Parts, and I have mic'd these down to the spot on, because I was buying the I think it's called Butylite, the white beetle-like. They're kind of a parchment from Philadelphia Luthiers, which is a copy of the old vintage pickup rings. But I'm getting these from All Parts, and man, I'm telling you, they're identical. They're spot on. Everything about the dimensions, the centering of the screws. So everything about these, I'll be able to provide these for your project, and can get them in black, can get them in parchment. I know with this guitar here, we'd be going back black. So don't worry about that. Pickups, the cool thing about pickups, that's always an afterthought. You had mentioned you don't have a wiring harness. I've built a bunch of Flying V and Explorer harnesses, so if you're cool with it, let me just go ahead and plan on building the harness, and that way, unless the guy that you used for the SG harness, that was some beautiful work, although there were a few things in there that I didn't really care for, because he had some wires a little bit too straight run that didn't allow for any variation in movement. So when I build my wiring harnesses, I always build them so they'll have a little bit of movement in there and don't have any restriction. So in other words, I can build the harness and I can, install the pickups. We can take it to whatever degree we want. I'm gonna stop because we haven't talked about that stuff yet. But in other words, what I'm trying to get at, don't worry about rounding up all of these parts if you don't have them, because I can just go ahead and source them, and either source them as we're beginning to get the project started. Then I'll be looking for maybe a vintage bridge that's in excellent condition, or maybe a pick guard that's vintage correct, that's in excellent condition, or what I'm about to start talking about probably immediately is the different options between how we build this guitar. Because where I'm going with this, initially Eric had mentioned that he did have a pick guard that was per circuit, early 80s. And I thought he meant he had a pick guard like laying on the table that he could ship me. But he mentioned to me this morning that pick guard is on a 1979 E2. And then he made the statement, well, maybe we could just machine our own pick guard. Because I machine my own pick guards, of course, per my templates, but they're per 58 designs. But when he let me know that he did not have the pick guard, it caused me to back up and punt and realize I got to do a video and let him know that we got a couple of different options we could go here, if not 2 or 3 different options, and that's what I want to start talking about right now. Okay, from a standpoint of this serial number being the 7th guitar ever made, I would say we need to stay historically accurate with the body. And I'm only repeating what Eric sent me in the last text message, where, I like the idea of where we're going with this project, the historically accurate 1981 curly maple top, tobacco burst, all the specs. So with that said, I had mentioned I'll have to make templates and build a different body. If we were going to restore the guitar, I could build a 58 specs body, and I just want to present that to you, Eric, that I can still do that. But I would say, based on the fact that we discovered this is a number 00, the 7th guitar ever made, I would say that everything about this project needs to be pretty close to spot on, historically accurate. And with that said, it would be this profile right here, which is last night I spent a few hours doing layout and cut out from the Electric Herald templates. And I'll show you this first. What I'm holding right here, this would be a 1981 E2 body, spot on. And you can see how this is just a little bit more pointy right here. And not only is it a little bit more pointy right there, it's a little bit more pointy up here, but I think these plans are off a little bit. I don't think it's nearly as pointy up here as what they drew, because when I was looking at all of the historical pictures online, this wasn't nearly that sharp. It looked a lot more like this right here. Okay, so that's the corner I would be putting on your guitar. And you have to be really careful with these drawings because a lot of times these companies that do these replicas, um, sometimes even they're probably guessing a little bit. But this will show you the difference between, let me slow down here. It's a little bit shorter right here, and you can see the pitch angles are slightly different, but nonetheless, there's a little less material right here. This is pretty close up in here, but you can see the point difference. The horn on the 58 is bigger, and to me, is just really stunning. It's really beautiful, but you would not want to put this horn on this 1981 because it would look really oddball, and you can see how much shorter the 1981 is compared to the 58 up under it. But I still think they got that point drawn a little bit too sharp right there. So you'd be splitting hairs a little bit. And as far as the top goes, they're pretty much spot on along the top there. A little bit different right here, but not much. But it would be such that I would be able to take this piece of paper right here, and once I build the Honduran mahogany lower, then I'm basically just putting this up on top of that lower, and I would just be doing component route work. I wouldn't build a I may just build a template and just build the whole body, but I have no plans on building another one of these. And if I continue to build any more replicas, they're always going to be my 1958 profile because I'm already machine tooled up for that, is what I'm saying. But for your guitar, because it's so rare and so valuable, I think it's worth me spending the extra day or so setting up the tooling and the jig work in order to pull it off properly. But that's something that, if you want to know the truth, I could just I could temporarily tape straight boards up there at whatever angle I wanted to go by, and then just route that one location just about a quarter of an inch deep, and then move to this location and route just that area, and then step over to my taller bits and route down, and then just put it on my oscillating sander and just blend everything in together. And because all your final work is always done with straight line sanding, where you're sanding like that, and then you're sanding like that, and then you're sanding like that, and you're rounding that around, and then you're working down to like 400 grit. Okay. And again, I didn't clarify in this video series, this actual video, that this is not a how to build this guitar video. This video series is strictly for the client. And if you guys want to watch it for either for entertainment purposes or whatnot, if you're interested in learning how to build this guitar, then go back about 4 or 5 years where I show you how to build the replicas. But I just want to make sure I'm certain that I didn't get off track there and that I clarify what I just said. Yeah, I did. I think I drove that home. Based on what I'm holding here, the rarity of that neck, we need to build this body right here. But I need to get that sharp tooth point under control because something's funky with that design right there. But we saw how these lines right here were very much true. It's just far more pointy on this profile right here. Now, if Eric had mentioned that, yeah, man, I definitely have the historical pick guard and whatnot, even if I preferred to do this body, if he told me that he had the historical pick guard, I wouldn't have even presented this 58 plan right here because I would not have wanted to encourage him to change gears, because if you put this neck on this body, it's even the untrained eye would be able to see that it's a little bit different, especially the Gibson aficionados. But since he did not have that pick guard, that's why I just wanted to let him know that, hey, if you don't care about this valuation stuff and this historical stuff, and you just love what you see right here because it's a little bit bigger guitar, then yeah, I don't have a problem putting it on here. but I would say from a valuation standpoint, let's go this route right here. But please understand my ego's on the back burner, and if you love what you see with these templates and these plans, once I build this body, it's going to be noticeably different looking because of that point right there. Okay. All right, so let me put that right there, and then let's do this. Let me check the time. 45 minutes. Wow, I'm not sure where the time went. Let me just get back to my point list. Gibson PAF specs, pickup rings, already covered that. Talked about round a wall. Okay, this is pretty important. Here are our options. Okay, this is the and when I say this board is clear, this is one of the clearest. Well, I think this thing is 10 3/4 of an inch wide. And if there's anything about it that you see that scares you, just please understand this is rough, very rough. But the flame, that's called flame or curling, is this is not only is it a 5A, it's 5A the entire board. That's the only spot right there that shows a little bit of discoloration. But I've already designed it so that, let me see if I'll flip it around. I think this thing is 7 feet long. I have no idea what the camera's picking up. Okay, and where's the guitar? Okay, the guitar, there's no way I'm going to be able to show it, I don't think, because I'll lose control and knock everything apart. But basically, the guitar is going to be built in the far left corner. Basically, yeah, I should be able to let that sit right there. I should have already gotten the templates out. I'll have to show it I'll have to lay it flat and show you where the guitar will be built from. And unfortunately, when you buy lumber like that, you have to buy the whole board. I had no idea I was already in the 45-minute mark. But this is what's mind-blowing right here. I can get, it's heavy. I can get the entire guitar top out of one piece. That's amazing, and it's heavy. Only because it's 7 feet long. But then I can book match. Okay, it would be book matching like that right there. And either I could book match directly in line, which it doesn't need it because where I'm going this, I would be booked. I know you probably can't see that, but I'm doing the best I can. That's where the guitar is going to be coming from. Okay, now with that said, crap. And I can't show it because the board is upside down. But I've got to. This is so important. So important. Okay. A beautiful piece of flame, the more perpendicular the flame is to the center line, the better. But this works incredibly well to our advantage because this flame is on about a 5 degree, every bit of this flame is on about a 5 degree angle, exaggerating in this direction. So you're looking at the upper bout upside down of the guitar. Okay, that's the guitar right there. And that's the top, that's the front, obviously. And what's incredible about this is the flame goes back on that angle. In other words, you definitely would not have the flame going forward, even if it was in a chevron fashion. That's wrong. There's nothing wrong with it being going back like this and then in a chevron fashion, but I can build this so that the flame is going back this direction, and then once you get to the center line, I could not book match it, but just match the maple so that the flame continues on that 5 degree. And where I'm going with this from, if you trust my judgment, I know what I'm talking about as how to rough out that maple and glue it to this top, and it be the most beautiful, because you got the pick guard up here covering everything. It's not all that important, but nonetheless, that's, as soon as I saw that board, I saw where the guitar should be built, where the guitar should be cut out from, and be really, really beautiful. I don't like the idea of book matching, because if I book match it, it'll have just about a 5 degree chevron to it, which is beautiful on a Les Paul. But I say, because of this long, beautiful line right here, you want to keep the flames in line. Okay. And I kind of didn't want to bring that up, because that's hell to explain that to someone, especially if you're not a woodworker. But you woodworker guys out there, you know what I'm talking about. But the next consideration would be 51 minutes. Okay. Now, the back obviously will be Honduran mahogany, but if you wanted, it being a dark stained guitar, it's going to be clear mahogany once the mahogany is glued up. Because if you bought a one piece of Honduran mahogany, it has to be about 28 inches long, if not 30 inches long, and it has to be about 18 inches wide. If you buy one piece of mahogany, that's about $250 to $300 on average. It's extremely expensive, and it's typically not even the most beautiful mahogany. But with this Honduran right here, it's so beautiful when I glue it up, whether I glue it up on a center line or I glue it up in a off center line cut. Once it's sprayed with a dark stain, you won't even know it's a glued up body. But when I was sitting there in the shop and I was looking at this neck, I can see these distinctive lines going down this 3-piece neck. And everything about this design started out where they were kind of doing some, laminate work, and they were teetering around with the custom lines and stuff like that. Not necessarily on the body, but it prompted me to go back to my jazz guitar building days, where I would do a really fine maple line down the center. See, all it is just maple veneer between 3 pieces of mahogany. I would never go that wide in the middle. It'd always be more narrow, but nonetheless, I'm just showing that to show you this is Honduran mahogany. That's a beautiful white maple veneer, and then it creates this really beautiful line. So what I got to see was, man, this would be a great opportunity to follow the trapezoidal path of the neck from 1 11/16 up to 2 1/4. And once you hit 2 1/4, continue that maple line, that trapezoidal path, all the way through the body, and have the body be a 3-piece body. Looking at it from the back, you would see these beautiful, kind of like a Martin D, whatever that Martin acoustic guitar is, the one that's so by D28, where they did it on a pretty sharp taper, but it would basically be, just real beautiful maple sight lines that continued off of the neck, outside of the neck, all the way out through the body, and then the centerpiece would be Honduran mahogany from the same piece. And the wing up here would still have a very small glue joint on the top, but that's just traditional on all the Explorers. But the bottom, there really wouldn't be any glue joints. But even if I glued it up into a 7-piece wide body, you wouldn't be able to tell once I stained it really dark. But I got to think, I thought, man, this would be a hell of an opportunity to do something really beautiful, so that when you look at this guitar from the back, as I just clarified, you know, basically you would see something like that right there. And then you're still staining it fairly dark. The reason I brought that up is because a lot of the pictures that I saw, even though it was smoked out very dark on the sides, the back was semi-transparent. So if it was in their design for that to be semi-transparent, that would be really beautiful to have those real clean continuing lines that just, you know, are just a continuation of the outside of the neck. So that's not something that has to be considered immediately, but I just want you to be presented with that, Eric, so that you could see that if you wanted to, I could build the body that way, or just build up the body to where it just looks like solid, clear mahogany. Okay, let me pause. Okay, with that said, in case I didn't clarify, just, you know, imagine that being the back of the body, and that is the exact distance it would be apart. And if you want to know that number, it's a 68 millimeter. I think it's really beautiful. And that also would allow me to end the video right here after I talk about, since we are doing a maple top, then it can be treated like the Les Paul, where you've got the body lower, and then you got the maple cap that's getting glued down. And then after it's all said and done, the guitar is still historically accurate at 1.5 inches after it's sanded and everything. But with that said, if I'm gluing down a top, since this is an average of a 10.5 pound guitar, if I'm gluing down a top, we could do weight relief in the body. And I won't get into that in this video because that would get into the realm of like engineering tone bars and designing the weight relief in certain areas to act a certain way. And that's too much information for me to just present and then, you know, stop talking about it. So just keep in mind, if you want the guitar to be lighter, we could get into engineering weight relief later on, because that's weeks away from now. Before, well, probably not. It probably would go a lot quicker than that because I've already got the wood in house. But within a few days to a week or so, we'd probably be ready to make the decision: do we want to relieve weight out of the lower before we glue this top down? But I do like the idea of, rather than having this top machined through like this right here, is I can do all this internal machine work just like you're building a Les Paul, and then once the top gets glued down, even though we would be putting a pick guard on it, I can leave the top surface of all the maple completely solid and only drill out for the actual three-way. And then I could actually machine it from the back of the body, which is traditional in a lot of the Explorers, and then do the small cover, the rectangular, kind of like a hot dog bun cover on the back. And then the three-way would be installed from the back. And then the entire top of the guitar would be solid. And from a tonal standpoint, that would be incredible. That would make a big difference. And then still put the pickguard on there just so that it is in keeping with the historical design. But our design would be an incredible improvement because I would be able to route in here for all the wiring channel work, and then drill into the cavity control cavity down here. It would look identical, you know. The lower routing would still stop right there, the wiring harness channel, but the top would still be solid. Well, hell, it's because it's the maple that's getting glued down. But before you glue the top down, it would kind of look like that. It would look identical to that right there, except there would be some channel route work right there to receive the pickup wires. Okay, so enough information. Just keep that in mind. I definitely like the idea of building that way. And my first Explorer replica that I built, that's very similar to how I built it, and it sounded incredible. So with that said, going once, going twice, we have the opportunity to do weight relief. Check the time, 59 minutes. The camera's probably about to cut me off. And I talked about the accent strip, the 2 maple, and we could either do a 58 footprint body or we could do an 80s footprint body, which I would say we probably should stick with the 80s footprint body, but it's your guitar. If you like what you see and you're okay, then we'll go that route. Otherwise, the serial number is prompting me to really back up and punt and rethink this job. But regardless, once the hill work goes on, that's all the nitro work is done. You will not be able to tell that there was any heel work done. And so based on that, I think I probably could just end the video right there before it cuts me off. But let me look at my list. I don't think there's any reason in talking about the serial numbers, but it was Friday, July the 17th, 1981, based on the serial number, and it was the 7th guitar made of this new series, and 1981. It was made on the 198th day of the year, and number 007. Super, super rare. Okay, tobacco bursts. Yeah, okay. So I appreciate you guys dropping in. This is not going to be a how-to series. This is going to be a video series strictly for the client. But feel free to drop in and ask questions, and I'll do what I can to help you out. And we'll go from there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Looking around at the table, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.